Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday. Hope we're having a wonderful start to our weekend out there, and we've got a lot to talk about once again today as we continue to kind of trek on through this busy pattern with hurricanes and heat waves and droughts and monsoons and a little bit of everything across the country out there. So we'll definitely break all that down for you in today's video. Now, if you haven't already, definitely consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 1,500 by the end of the month, and at the last time I checked, which was like an hour or two ago, we were at 1,460. So only about 40 away. So I think it's definitely doable to get there within the next 2 weeks. So again, really, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And of course, if you like the video, definitely go ahead and hit that like button, as it helps the channel out a lot. And comment, let me know where you're watching from, what you're seeing out there, and what you want to see out there. Personally, myself, I'm very happy right now this morning in Charlotte that the dew point is right around 60 and not too bad. In fact, it feels pretty nice for this time of year. So that's what I'm happy about, and I'm excited about fall, which I'm sure many of you are as well. And if you're not already, you definitely will be after next week. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into your forecast now. So, per usual, let's go ahead and start off with satellite imagery here, and we got a couple things that we're looking at out here over the Atlantic. This is Hurricane Hilary, so that's specific, but in the Atlantic, we also have an area kind of near the Bahamas spinning a little bit that we have to look out for, another area down near the Lesser Antilles, and then another area to watch behind that one, and then even more behind that is coming off of Africa that could cause trouble down the road. So, again, a very active pattern. We're getting very close to peak climatological season here in the Atlantic, and you can definitely easily see that. Now, of course, right now, Hilary is the bigger threat to the United States. The rest are kind of, a lot of question marks still, but Hilary, we know, will impact the United States and in a place that you might not expect a hurricane to, right here into the desert Southwest and specifically southwestern California there. So taking a look right now at our radar out there and what we're seeing. Right now, it's pretty dry for a lot of folks. We do have some scattered showers this morning up into the northeast, so definitely watching out for that here through upstate New York and even into Vermont and some other states surrounding there. And then back out to the desert southwest, we're already seeing some of that rain from Hilary or just the general flow being caused by it making its way into the desert southwest. So down here into Southern California, we're seeing some pretty heavy showers this morning back just east of Tijuana and San Diego this morning. So again, if you're living out in that area, that's really going to be the bullseye for where we see the most rain out of Hilary here. So really going to have to watch out for that. Now, in terms of watches, warnings, advisories out there for this Saturday, we have a lot of excessive heat warnings and heat advisories right in the heart of the country from Minneapolis all the way down to New Orleans. And it's going to be very hot out in that part of the country today, and it will be hot in the east as well, just not quite as bad as we're going to see out into the plains. And luckily here in the east, the air is going to be relatively comfortable today with dew points only really hovering in the 50s and 60s. So that's good news for us out here. Of course, out west, the big story is all the flooding. So we have plenty of flash flood watches from Idaho all the way down to San Diego, where we have, even a bit more of a threat further south you go down the coast there. All right, so looking at today's temperatures, again, it's going to be hot out into the plains. So we are expecting highs anywhere from 105 to 110 degrees for much of Texas, all the way up to Kansas, and all the way down towards Louisiana. So very hot out there today. And of course, we're even going to get up into the mid-90s as far north as potentially even the Canadian border up here into Minnesota. So again, that's why we have those heat advisories, watches, and warnings. The northeast is kind of going to be the cool spot today, with temperatures only really getting into the 80s and some not even getting there. A lot of us being stuck in the 70s. That all due to that cold front that moved through yesterday. So northeast, really enjoy that today. A little bit of a taste of fall for you here. So definitely get out there and enjoy that. As for the southeast, I'd say a pretty average kind of August day. A little bit cooler maybe than you would expect up here in Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia. But once you start getting south into the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, about what you would expect for this time of year, just a little bit drier in there. So the dew point not quite as oppressive. Now, as we get into tomorrow, that's when this heat wave we've been talking about really begins to kind of take shape here and becomes quite an issue for a lot of folks. So, everyone kind of just increase your highs a little bit tomorrow outside of the extreme northern plains here, where we will actually be cooling down a little bit. All right, so I did want to show you real quick the dew point map, just because of course that's very important on how we are feeling outside. And also, sorry if I sound sluggish or anything. This is a bit early in the morning for me, but I have plans today, so I had to get this out early on. So Sorry, I probably should have said that at the beginning of the video, but if you made it this far and you're wondering why I might sound like I'm half asleep, there's your reason. I am trying with the coffee. We will see if that does its job or not, but anyway, let's get back to the weather. So the dew point today, again, it's actually going to be quite comfortable for a lot of folks. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this ahead to this afternoon, about 3, 4 o'clock. Again, dew point's only getting into the lower 60s for some pretty, southern cities like Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg, back up towards Raleigh. And if you're kind of in this nice pocket of these green colors, dew point's only getting into the 50s. So very comfortable air for a lot of folks this afternoon. And again, especially those higher terrains into West Virginia, up through the Poconos and into the higher terrains of the Northeast, a really fall-like day, honestly, for a lot of folks out there. So again, get out there and enjoy that, because as we move this ahead into tomorrow afternoon, you'll notice those dew points start coming back, and we're really back with a bit of a vengeance. So widespread 70s in the southeast tomorrow for dew points, and then the 60s take back over in the northeast. And then by the time we get into our Monday afternoon, well, we're all back to summertime dew points. So again, you're really going to want to get out there and enjoy it today before that changes going into early next week. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this heat wave a little bit, and why we're seeing it, how long it's going to last, and how bad it's going to be. So again, we're expecting this massive ridge to kind of build into the pattern here to start the week. So this is going into tomorrow and Monday. Look at all of this red taking over the eastern half of the country, with that bullseye being right over the heart of the country there into Kansas and Missouri. So again, the way this is going to work is we're going to see a lot of clockwise flow around this thing, and those are actually pretty good arrows, if I do say so myself. So I'll pat myself on the back for drawing some arrows pretty well. So anyway, if you're kind of on the perimeter of this, that's where we're going to have the best chance to see some rain and some storms. If you're inside of that bubble, or kind of all of this area in between, that's where we're going to see a whole lot of nothing in terms of precipitation, but a lot of heat. So you're going to want to get ready out here. Because this thing, it's going to hurt. I'm not going to lie. The dew points are going to be high. The temperature is going to be very high, and we're not going to get much rain to help relieve that, or really wind, because whenever you have high pressure, obviously it's a pretty spread out gradient compared to low pressure, where it's very tight and compact. So we're really going to be lacking in the wind department as well under this thing, which is going to, really just not give us any relief at all. Now, that ridge looks to weaken a little bit by the time we get into the middle of next week, and could eventually break down in the East Coast by the time we get into next week, and we'll have to watch that. But what I'll tell you now, or really starting tomorrow, I'd say through at least Thursday of this coming week, is just really going to be brutal out there for a lot of folks. So, excuse me, showing that to you, in the temperature map here. Again, these reds, which just depict above average temperatures for this time of year, really build in Monday afternoon here. Widespread reds for a lot of folks, with temperatures getting, near 20 degrees above what they should be this time of year for some people. Going into our Tuesday, that continues, and that even will continue into a Wednesday of this coming week, as well as into Thursday. Although by the time we get to Thursday, things could moderate up into the northeast, and we'll hope that they'll moderate even more after that for areas a bit further west into the United States. Now, as for the peak of this thing, I'd say really Tuesday through kind of Thursday or Friday of this coming week will be the peak of it. And after that, it should hopefully moderate a little bit, although still above average, should get a bit better. All right, so just to give you an idea of how hot this is going to be, and this map I'm showing you is not feels like temperature, okay? So you have to add the dew points on top of this. This is just raw temperature. This is for Tuesday afternoon. And you'll notice very widespread 100-degree temperatures from South Dakota all the way down to Texas, and all the way back over towards the Carolinas, even getting near that 100-degree mark. National Weather Service going with 99 degrees in Columbia, South Carolina, for our day 4 high. So again, this isn't even including dew points. By the time we add those in, these feels like temperatures in the southeast are very likely going to be up near 110 degrees, maybe even higher than that for some folks. So again, really just brutal heat for a lot of people, and I'm sure by the time we're looking at this map next week, we're going to have very widespread excessive heat warnings, watches, and all sorts of fun stuff on the map for everyone, again, going into next week. So now taking a look at the rainfall, again, one symptom of this massive ridge is very little rainfall for a lot of folks here in the middle of the country. So from Minneapolis all the way down towards West Virginia, towards the Carolina coast, all the way to the Florida Panhandle and back towards Texas and back up, not a drop of rain likely to fall over the next week. So again, that's pretty sucky for us to kind of put it in a bit of crude terms, I guess. But it is what it is, and it's what we're expecting. So another thing you'll notice on this map is the rainfall back into the desert southwest as Hurricane Hilary works its way up through Baja California and into California itself, going into our overnight tonight and into early Sunday. So again, a lot of rain on the way here for you folks out west, and that's just another symptom of this ridge. Because of that flow around it, we're going to see plenty of moisture out of the Pacific go up into the desert southwest. So we'll definitely enjoy the rain for our reservoirs, but unfortunately deserts just are not built for this much rain that we're going to see. And I guess that's a pretty good segue into the next part of the video, which is actually talking about Hurricane Hilary itself. So Hilary is still a hurricane this morning, right now spinning really just west-southwest of Baja California here. And again, this is expected to make landfall likely in Baja California itself, but will still eventually work its way up into the state of California, likely as a tropical storm still going into our Sunday afternoon. But really, the effects of this thing will begin to be felt really starting today into tonight, and then tomorrow will be the peak of it for you folks. So we already have tropical storm warnings now up for the coast of southwestern California, this is the first time this has ever happened for a lot of these counties, seeing tropical storm warnings. So again, history being made with Hilary here as she continues to move northward. So again, the track really hasn't changed all that much, neither has the intensity forecast. Now, really, the big story with Hilary is not going to be the wind. In fact, there's plenty of breezy days out here in California. The big story is going to be just how much flooding we see out of this. And in fact, the National Hurricane Center has upped their forecast here and have added many more areas into this high risk, which is as high as it goes on the chart here for flash flooding over the next 3 days. So again, really areas kind of between San Diego and Yuma, northward to areas between Bakersfield and Las Vegas, really you have to have a way to get warnings and watches over the next couple of days, and you have to have a safe place to be able to go quickly. And in fact, if you live in a flood prone area, I would go ahead and just get out. If you have some family you can go stay with for a couple days, that's really just the smartest thing to do. Now, I will preface this by saying I am not an expert in desert southwest topography or meteorology, so obviously my strong suit's a little bit more in the East Coast here where I'm from and have grown up. So I would really go check your local National Weather Service site for a bit better details here on local topography issues and how exactly that will affect it. But either way, if you're in this kind of high risk, you have to be careful. And another good chart here is on the side that shows just kind of the daily breakdown of this. Again, starting today is whenever this flash flooding risk increases, especially in that red pocket. But tomorrow will be the peak, and that's whenever we will kind of see this map here. Before going into Tuesday, that threat shifts northwards up towards Nevada, Idaho, and sections of eastern Oregon. So that's the rainfall threat with Hilary. As for the wind, we do actually now have above a 50% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds here in extreme southern California. So again, the wind will be a threat, but again, the flooding is really just going to overtake that as the main threat. So don't let your guard down on the wind. Obviously, don't be standing under some trees or anything like that, and expect some power outages due to wind. But overall speaking, the flooding is really the main threat we have to worry about with Hilary. All right, so that's Pacific, that's Hilary. Let's talk about the Atlantic a little bit now and take a look at what we're seeing out here. Again, a very similar map to yesterday. We've got 1, 2, 3, well, if I could draw 3, that is, 3 and 4 areas to watch out for tropical development. Now, I don't want you to get too nervous looking at this. I know this is a lot, and we're in August, so this might, get you a little shaky, looking at this map, a little concerned. Now, obviously, we do need to keep an eye on this. However, some of this is a bit of noise, meaning right now there's really not all that much threat to land from some of these. Now, I would order these, and in terms of importance, number one, we got to watch this Gulf area first. After that, this area in the Bahamas could cause, not the Bahamas, but the Antilles rather, could cause some issues down the road. We'll have to wait and see. As for these two areas, most of the model guidance either, develops it to something that isn't super strong or, develops it, then kind of kills it in some wind shear and dry air out here. And then after that, still continues to move it out to sea. So these two areas we'll keep an eye on, but we really need to focus on area 1 and 2 here for now. So let's go ahead and take a look at some tropical models here. We'll start with our European model, which is kind of old reliable in the world of weather here. And our European model does begin to develop these kind of 3 areas slowly over the next couple of days. So area 1, 2, and 3, I guess really 2, 3, 4, because that Gulf area I called area 1, so, numbers are hard, oops. So anyway, the European model does begin to develop these over the next couple of days, but doesn't do too much with them. and kind of really just fizzles them out a bit here over the open ocean. Now, by the time we get into early next week is whenever we have a bit more of two kind of defined systems, although still relatively weak, one down in the Caribbean and another out here kind of still in the middle of the Atlantic. Now, while that's going on, you'll notice we do have this wave that we looked at with that kind of orange color on the map moving into the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll zoom in on that a little bit more here in a second, but right now talking about the threats out here real quick with the European model. Again, those two still kind of really don't get too strong, and eventually still kind of just meander a little bit for the next week before eventually going way out there, we have a bit more coverage on the map, but that's so far out there that still really just a lot of speculation. So we really just need to wait for the core of these storms to kind of develop to be able to forecast them a little bit better. Right now, they're all just kind of along this monsoon trough that we see this time of year out here in the Atlantic, which is pretty much when just winds are coming from different directions and cause kind of natural spin combined with, very tropical air, and that's how we often get hurricanes out here. So once, these systems kind of form along that trough axis and then actually begin to move off of it, it'll be a little bit easier to forecast these. All right, so now that we talked about those, I want to zoom back a little bit here and talk about that area in the Gulf a little bit more. So again, right now it's kind of sitting over the Bahamas, and over the next couple of days, we'll travel into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, conditions in the Gulf of Mexico are not necessarily ripe for development, although they are somewhat conducive. So we do have to be careful. In fact, the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico are really off the charts right now. So that is going to be something that really helps to aid the development of this. Now, in terms of dry air and shear, there will be a little bit, especially here in the northern Gulf, all because of that massive ridge that we have been talking about that is on the way. So you'll notice that will eventually move into the Gulf here, and again, very weak overall, just more of an open wave compared to any tropical cyclone. Now, I do think this could very well develop into, a tropical cyclone, but at the end of the day, it likely wouldn't be very strong, more likely to see a tropical storm than a hurricane at this point with anything that does form in the Gulf over the next couple of days. All right, so taking a look at the GFS model here, again, kind of does the same thing with the stuff out into the middle of the Atlantic, but is a little bit closer to closing off this low in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll definitely see what happens. I'll show you the ensembles here in a second, which I think are a way better way to kind of look at this threat out there. And, either way, no matter what happens with that, it's going to end up moving into southern Texas and extreme northern Mexico there on its east coast. So what we're hoping for is this does not close off, does not form into a tropical system, and can kind of just bring some much needed rain here to southern Texas. Now looking back out at the Atlantic here on the GFS model, again, much like the European, kind of is a little bit all over the place, but way out there in time, does have a couple systems we need to monitor out of the current areas we have interest on, as well as more waves that will eventually come off of Africa. So again, definitely looking at that. All right, so now taking a look at our ensembles, we'll start with the European ensemble here. And again, the European has been a lot more bullish really on a couple of these waves recently, and you'll notice here, as we go into next Tuesday, the European model has a lot of members picking up on that Gulf wave and developing it into a tropical storm. So definitely have to watch that. You'll also notice the European model, by the time we get to early next week, has not one, not two, not three, but four areas of potential development out into the Atlantic main development region. So again, we really need to watch that, and as we go into the long range, into about the middle and end of next work week, you'll notice this is when things get a little bit interesting. We really need to put our eye out here on this area after the Gulf area kind of dies off a little bit. So we really need to watch whatever gets north of the Bahamas. Now, this is that area that's currently out here near the Antilles. This is going to move into the Caribbean where it will have a chance to develop, but then will eventually slide northward into this area out near the Bahamas. And what happens then is what we really need to keep an eye on at that point. Does it continue kind of out to sea, or does it move more slowly north and westward towards the continental United States? And then as for all these other areas, again, they're so far out there, we got plenty of time to watch them, so I don't want to talk too much about those right now. As for our GFS model, again, a little bit less bullish on that Gulf wave compared to our other models, but does as well, like the European, show the idea of some kind of system getting out here north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and kind of east of the Bahamas there. So need to watch that, and then also has some areas further out into the Atlantic as well that we will need to ultimately keep an eye on. Alrighty, so that's all I've got for you on this Saturday. Again, hopefully the update was of use to you. And of course, like I said, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so and like the video if you like it. So yeah, again, sorry if I sound a little maybe dreary or down today. I'm just really tired and the coffee hasn't quite kicked in yet. So hopefully it's about to do that because I've got a long day ahead of me. With that said, though, again, I hope you also have a great rest of your Saturday and hopefully Sunday as well. But until then, again, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.